Want to put your hands together because he is ready and waiting. He's standing up. He's making a move. It's absolutely brilliant. Right. Do you want the stand? Do you want it in there? Right, okay, put your hands together for the fabulous Joe Griffin!
Thanks very much, Billy. And it's nice to be performing in the local area tonight. Thinking Joe, it's quite a simple name, no misunderstandings normally. Not in this area, as it turns out. If you try and say the name with that slight twang we add to our O's, I think you might have noticed it, to other parts of the country, sometimes I get confused. I've been mistook for a J, a John, but the nice thing is, when I'm gigging here, we don't have that problem. So Joe is Joe tonight, so that's nice. A bit more about me. I'm a really big fan of sayings and idioms. So I think some really good life lessons in there. For example, don't rest on your laurels. I mean, I don't know what a laurel is. I never rest on it. Never do that. I think some of them are nonsense though. So I'm going to throw one out there. Every cloud has a silver lining. Bullshit. I think of a few things off the top of my head that I cannot see an upside to. Things that spring to mind, you may or may not agree. Climate change, Brexit, Liz Truss, or lettuce, whatever you prefer to call it. Cannot see a ray of sunshine between any of those things. But what I am trying to do, I mean, I'm not going to get in the doom and gloom, because the world is a bit fucked at the minute, but I am trying to popularise a new saying that I think sort of suits the times we're in. It was actually coined during the COVID-19 pandemic by the Fuji-Q Highland theme park in Japan. When they're trying to reopen the world, they're trying to get people to ride the attractions in a COVID-compliant way, so no shouting, no yelling. And you may have seen it, you may not, there's a brilliant video online of two executives riding a roller coaster, face masks on, completely emotionless, and a little tagline at the end, please scream inside of your heart. And I like that because not only does it allow people to ride attractions without spreading novel viruses, I think it's also a good way to kind of channel your emotions in everyday life. Now I don't know about you, but I scream in my heart at least once a day, maybe twice, on the more stressful occasions. I can see some of you laughing in your hearts as well, and I really appreciate getting the spirit of it. Very good. So yeah, next thing I'm going to address is the coat. Fortunately, it's a breezy July night. I was a bit worried actually, because I did think of this joke in February, and I'm sticking with it. So what I was going for was kind of, what would you least expect to be worn by a tax inspector? We'll come back to that, don't worry. I was thinking Game of Thrones, King in the North, maybe a little bit of Nordic warrior. Unfortunately, I've been told I'll give it a pimp who shops at Primark. Never mind. Anyway. Keep it on, it's not a bit toasty actually. So yeah, back to tax inspecting. Obviously you want to hear more about that. So you're thinking, was it his dream job? Was that a lifelong held ambition? No, it's no one's dream job or lifelong ambition, but we're here, it pays the bills. So yeah, it can be an interesting job in some ways. So I've obviously trust you all instinctively, so I've let you in on the ruse, but you do find you don't always want to reveal yourself as an officer of His Majesty's Revenue Customs, and change that name. So this first presented itself when I first got my job, very fresh-faced taxman, riding in taxis. So you know the taxi thing. This has been confirmed by taxi drivers who've seen this set, by the way. So I'm desperately in the taxi, not wanting to say the typical, what time are you until, you've been busy, etc. There's actually a mirror image of the taxi driver, so driving along. What do you do for a living, mate? What do you do for a living, mate? What? I didn't know what to say. But fortunately, I've worked on a couple of alter egos, as well as the pimp, actually, to get me out of that situation, not to get into the ins and outs and the moralities of tax. We'll get into that a bit later. So first one I go for, and actually we've got Colin in the house tonight, you'll understand this, I simply say, I'm an accountant. Very boring, very similar in the way I'm an accountant for the government, much like a tax inspector, not interesting stuff, but I can talk the lingo. But I really like this one, because it works in a few different other ways. So what you do is, by saying this to a taxi driver, you create a safe space where suddenly they feel very happy to volunteer all the ways they fiddle the books, dodge HMRC, and sometimes with a bonus round of I'm not racist, but it's my favourite part. I will just clarify, especially with Colin, I didn't dod these people in. I'm a tax inspector, I'm not a grass. So yeah, I was reflecting on my career recently. I'm very pleased, been doing it about 8 or 9 years now, and I'm just going to redeem myself slightly in your eyes with a bit of audience participation. I don't do this normally. Put your hand up if you like paying tax. Shocking, oh no one, okay, right, okay. It's fine. Put your hand up if you like the idea of banks paying tax. Okay, well, good, well, Robin Hood is here. So I primarily worked with banks, making sure they paid the correct amount of tax and duties, and in 8 or 9 years recovered £15 million for the exchequer. So quite good. Businesses, schools, hospitals, all that good stuff, important stuff. I think that's quite a good showing, Joe, well done. And then I realised that a certain Prime Minister of ours last year managed to lose that amount of money every 36 minutes she was in office. Drop in the ocean. So I move on to a different topic now. We've had a lot of tax, I appreciate that. And you might be starting to think, this sounds like a CV. That's because it is my CV. It's just easy material. And then my previous job was working over at Waitrose in Willoughby. And I'm sure many of you shop there, so I'm going to try and not offend all of you. But so that was a job. I was customer service supervisor, so you're dealing with the complaints, the escalations, the issues at the checkout that can't be resolved, and generally just a great deal of entitlement, actually. Sorry, really. But I'm going to talk you through some customer stereotypes that I think illustrate my point. So I'm going to start with what I call the aggressive reduction shopper. So I'm not going to go at anyone for trying to sort of make ends meet in a cost of living crisis. It's not who I am. However, these are the reduction shoppers who are often driving a BMW or a Jag. You know those ones who park it over 2 spaces because they're really considerate people? Yeah, those ones. Often dripping in more jewellery than Mr. T. And they'll wander up, grab a piece of cheesecake, whatever it may be, and they get right in the staff member's face. When are you reducing this? How much are you reducing it by? There's 2 things to note about this. You'll see that some supermarkets, or most at this point, have actually gone to creating barricades, so you just can't do this, leave that person alone effectively. That's how bad it's got. And the other thing you need to know, if you ever do this, the outcome will be that item is reduced when you've left the premises. Don't do it. Don't do it. The other thing about Waitrose, Christmas was a time that I really, really enjoyed actually, until I worked in retail. As you can imagine, you all know, I imagine, Waitrose, Christmas, the stakes are high. People have been planning it since last Christmas, if not before. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses, they've got the best thing. Whatever Nigel has planned that year, they want to emulate it. Whatever Heston's cooked up that month, whether it's a turnip in a Christmas pudding or whatever it might be, they need to have it. It's very important. So when you have to tell someone that the turkey they ordered, usually something like a bronze, hand-plucked, corn-fed turkey crown, is 5% smaller than they anticipated, the reaction is as if you killed their entire family. Fortunately, I had a way to kind of deal with these customers, which was to offer them a free, cheap Prosecco until they left me alone. And I say strategy, it was Waitrose store policy. I wonder why they're entitled. And then to link the two, at Christmas you got what I call the evolved, the final form of the reduction shopper, which I call the turkey men. And they come in huddles, Christmas Eve, sort of disparate groups, but somewhat organised. I don't know if there's a WhatsApp group or I don't know how they do it, but they all come in, kind of competing, kind of working together, and they'll be sort of giving the turkeys a squeeze, eyeing up the one they want, because they're thinking, oh, I can get a good deal here. I'd like to point out, I don't think they even left it this late. I think this was hunter-gatherer coming out. It was all about just getting the most meat for your family, the lowest amount of price, lowest price rather. And they proceed to go around the store, asking every single staff member, including cleaners and the trolley boy, when are you reducing these turkeys? They're not going to, it's nearly Christmas, they're not going to sell. And internally, every staff member is thinking, fuck off, it's Christmas. So yeah, that was, you're thinking, oh, you did a great job at Waitrose, always offered excellent customer service. But I did break the rules, or bend the rules rather, on a couple of occasions. So I'm going to tell you about the time I reappropriated 70 cigars that were destined for the bin. So I had the unenviable task of cutting up all these cigars that had an incorrect health label on. It's going to kill you anyway, but anyway. So I had to cut all these things up, and I couldn't really take it. I mean, I hate waste. I wasn't a full-time worker at this time, so I didn't have that much money. And I'd seen friends make rollies out of tab ends. It felt wrong to me. It did not feel right. So I came up with a cunning plan. And that was to cut up half the cigars, which was still painful, don't get me wrong. And then I put the others in a bin liner. I thought, I'm going to hide these and burn these later. That's basically what I was meant to do, wasn't it? And then I ran outside later and reappropriated them for my own purposes. And then for the next few months, what you'd get the pleasure of seeing me and my friends coughing and spluttering on a cigar. We had no idea how to smoke at all, but they were free. So, in an effort to further endear myself to you, I'll tell you a bit about my brief time in Westminster, working for an MP. I had a great time in London, really, really good. All the parties I attended were legal, just going to clarify that. But I actually made the news, which I thought was quite impressive. Actually, got an article on BBC News, I'm going to get this right, in case you're going to Google it when you get home, I imagine. So let's get this. Urine pouring to Ben Bradshaw MP's office. It was not my urine, but it was my desk. So, at the heart of this story. It was actually mentioned quite specifically. As one of the former Culture Secretary's staff, I don't think they heard me, or understood me when I said Joe. So I think that brings us to the last, as I say, this has been not necessarily my employer's CV that I send out for jobs, by the way, but you're all in a circle of trust, so we're talking lows and lowers, just to clarify. So last and probably least was my first job at Wilby Manor, Best Western Hotel. Don't mind pointing, it's been knocked down. And that was working as a waiter, 15 years old, about £3 an hour, to be treated like shit every Friday and Saturday night. It's great fun, really enjoyed it. So I think actually it was very fair that I stole as many chocolate mints that my apron could carry, and I learned how to inhale a dessert in about 5 seconds. And if you're wondering, it's tiramisu is the best one to do that with. So yeah, this is the low, I'm not a real low here. This is the only job I've ever been fired or dismissed from. I'm going to give you that story now, so there's a bit of a demonstration involved here. So, we're working functions, just to set the scene, lots and lots of people to serve, and we have to get the information at the start of the shift, vegetarian, any special requirements, anything you need to know about the night. But important stuff, you write it down, you need that information. So we stood there, the manager's talking to us, we're getting all the information, I'm diligently writing it down, like a good employee, as you can tell. My friend Adam stood next to me, who I worked with at the time, instead decided to do this little masterpiece, which I've done an artist's interpretation of. I'm just going to make sure everyone sees this, it's important for the story. So yeah, he drew this, and that was probably fine. We had a good chuckle, and it was recoverable at this point. We could have easily come back from it. That's the important thing to know. And then Adam boots himself up. He gets into work mode, decides to get into the zone and write this information down. He rips that away and proceeds to find the obscene number of penises that I've littered throughout his notepad. And it was a lot. It was a lot. It kept coming. A good few minutes. He just didn't know when they were going to end. So when you laugh and you can't laugh, but it makes you laugh so much more. For about 5 minutes, maybe even 10. And the problem was there was no way of explaining that. There was just no way I could get explained to my manager. Our private artwork in dicks. So unfortunately, as you can guess, we were never called again. So and I think that covers all of my CV. So you're pleased to know. That is the end of my set, but before I go, I would like to take this opportunity to apologise to any Waitrose shoppers, taxi drivers, anyone who's just got out of prison, but not accountants. Thank you very much. I've been Joe Griffiths.